Exhibit 447. I have given a copy to the defense counsel. They have stipulated to the admissibility, so I will approach. Can I approach, Your Honor? Basically, Your Honor, I'm sorry. Basically, Your Honor, they are just overview Google Maps of the Romero convenience store and the vicinity.
Second, why don't you call out the jury?
All rise.
Had a good weekend, but we're back to work. State recall this witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state recalls James.
Salter, let me remind you, you're still under oath.
Yes,
Before
sir.
I take a seat.
Thank you.
Testified, you had identified the defendant, Mr. Romero, as the person you saw in the passenger seat nearby the Arby's, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Could you, if with the court's permission, could he step down, Judge? Could you just step down, Mr. Stalter, and use this pen and kind of help the jury understand where you were and how it was you were able to see the vehicle and specifically see the passenger, Mr. Romero?
I was at the drive-up window here, and the other vehicle was here, facing in opposite directions. And as they drove away, I could see the passenger in that vehicle.
Did you have a clear view of the passenger and the driver?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know, could you give the jury an idea of how close you were to him, to the defendant, I'm sorry, to the passenger?
Maybe from here to the wall.
Okay. And were your windows open or down?
Down.
And you can go ahead and take the witness stand.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And looking at, I'm sorry, I neglected, we were referring to State's Exhibit 394. And this is State's Exhibit 124, which I think we had you look at before. And does this also show the Arby's and the drive-through?
Yes, ma'am.
And how was their vehicle positioned? In other words, how close to that curb? That's the outer edge of the drive-through
The
there.
photograph you're looking at now, they were on the other side of that vehicle, face with the back of their vehicle toward the
I'm
police
sorry,
car.
I hate to do this, but could you step down again?
Yes.
Please, sir. I'm sorry. Instead of trying to describe, if you could just, again,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Their vehicle was here on the other side of this police vehicle, facing in that direction. And we were here at the drive-up window, facing the street this way, facing this way.
And when they drove off, which direction did they drive?
This way here.
And
They drove away.
And your vehicle was facing the opposite direction?
Yes, ma'am.
And, okay. And just to be clear, this vehicle was not there at the time, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, sir. You can go ahead and sit back
Thank you.
down. And Mr. Stalter, is your identification of the defendant as the person you saw in the passenger seat by the Arby's, is that person in the courtroom?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you point him out and explain what he's wearing?
He's wearing a black jacket over a purple shirt with a black tie.
And the record to reflect that the witness has identified the defendant. And Mr. Stalter, were you ever shown any photo arrays or lineups, anything of that type?
No, ma'am.
So when you're testifying today about the identity of the passenger that you saw at the Arby's, what is that identification based on?
Because I recognized the person I saw.
And did you get a clear look at him?
Yeah.
Thank you. Pass the witness.
Any comments?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Stalter. So basically, the only time you saw the passenger in the vehicle was at the Arby's, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you spoke with law enforcement concerning what you saw that day on June 9th of 2015, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you were talking to law enforcement, they were asking you questions about what you saw that day?
Yes.
That was the purpose of the interview, is for you to share that information.
Yes.
Let me finish my question if you don't mind, okay?
When you're finished, let me know.
Okay. So the purpose of that interview was for you to provide information to law enforcement so they could help, you could help with their investigation, right?
Yes.
And you did that?
Yes.
And in fact, when you spoke with law enforcement that day on June 9th of 2015, you gave great detail about what you saw that day at the Arby's. Correct?
Yes.
You talked to them about the direction that the vehicles were facing, right?
Yes.
You talked to them about whether the vehicles were running or turned off.
Yes.
You talked to them about what you saw inside the vehicle as far as people smiling or not.
Yes.
And during that entire conversation with law enforcement on June 9th of 2015, you never told law enforcement that you got a clear view of the passenger of the vehicle, did you?
I don't remember not saying that or saying that.
Would you like to take a look at your transcript and see
Sure.
if you said that?
Sure.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor? Thank you. Take your time.
Sorry, it might take a minute. I don't have my glasses. Okay, can you ask me your question again, please, ma'am?
At any point during that interview on, I believe it was June 9th of 2015, do you tell law enforcement what the passenger looked like?
I don't see it here.
You want to keep reading it?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
But you do describe to law enforcement that you remembered the driver's hair and her face, correct? You told them that. Do you recall that?
I don't remember what I said about the driver.
Page 19, line 14. Would taking a look at your transcript help you remember what
Sure.
you said about her? Okay, go ahead and
Thanks
look
for
at
helping me out to find it.
line 14.
Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't see her clothing, so
You just
Just
said
her
that you
face.
remembered her hair and her face, right?
just her face, yeah.
And in fact, at the completion of the interview with law enforcement, the officers and the detectives asked you if you remembered anything else from that incident that might be important. Do you recall them asking you that question?
No, I don't.
And in fact, you said there was nothing else you remembered, right?
I don't remember.
Page 19, line 17. You want to go ahead and read it, line 17?
Which one? 17? Thank you. what it says. They're asking me if there was anything else missing.
And you
That's
said,
it. No.
no, that's it, right?
That's it.
And then, Mr. Stalter, you gave an interview with defense team as far as what you recall from this incident as well, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And again, you understood that the purpose of that interview, much like the interview you gave with law enforcement, was to provide information for this case, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And again, in that interview, you detailed everything you recalled, both from the Arby's and later on by the Albertsons, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you recall that during that interview, you never said, you never identified Andrew Romero as the person inside that passenger vehicle, or the passenger side of the vehicle, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you did, or no, you did not?
No, I did not.
In fact, the first time that you're identifying Andrew Romero is in court, right?
I don't understand that.
Prior to your testimony on Thursday and to your testimony today, you never once told anybody that that was the guy you saw inside the Durango that day at the Arby's.
I think it was just a description. It wasn't particularly Andrew Romero. I never said his name.
Right. But the first time you said that was the guy was in court, right?
Yes.
And the description you gave was he was Hispanic with short hair and thin.
Thin gentleman, short hair. Yes, ma'am.
And you agree that you did see the news with Andrew's
Sure.
picture on this,
Yeah.
associated with this case, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And that the only person that's ever been associated with shooting Officer Benner was Andrew Romero, this guy sitting at council table, right?
Yes, ma'am.
May I have a moment, Your Honor? Nothing further, thank you.
Actually, Mr. Stalter, do you recall the first time you talked to any police officer about this incident? When was that?
In the parking lot that night?
And that was how long after you had been rendering aid to Officer Benner?
Shortly after.
And do you recall whether you gave Officer Sanchez, that first officer you talked to, a general description?
I don't remember.
Do you recall that you did describe him as Hispanic, about your height and built like you? Does that sound
I
familiar?
couldn't speak for height, but he was thin like, well, I don't consider myself that thin, but yeah, thin like myself.
And before you were asked in court to identify the defendant as the passenger you saw by Arby's, had anyone ever asked you that directly before?
Asked me what?
Asked you whether or not you could positively identify the defendant?
No.
And actually, the pretrial interview that Ms. Lales was asking you about, that was an interview conducted for the defense by the defense representatives, correct?
Yes.
And did you answer all the questions that they asked you?
Yes.
Did they ever ask you whether you could make a positive identification of the defendant?
I don't remember them asking me that.
When you just reviewed part of that transcript that Ms. Leos had given to you, I want to show you part of another transcript. Well, first let me ask you a question. During that pretrial interview, do you recall them asking you questions about what you saw while they were by the Arby's?
Yes.
Do you recall saying that you could see them both clearly as they drove off?
Yes.
How certain are you, Mr. Stalter, testifying under oath, that the individual that you've pointed to and identified is the same person you saw in the passenger seat in the Durango by the Arby's on May 25th?
Objection, meeting.
Let me ask that question.
Thank you. It's the same person I saw in the car.
Thank you.
Ms. Saunders, you may sit down.
Thank you, sir.
Proceeding to our next witness.
Michael, Your Honor, may Mr. Stahl be released or is the counsel still
I'm
working?
not going to release him yet.
That's fine.
Michael Law&Crime, you know. You can take the seat right up here.
Before you take a seat, I need to swear you. Just raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and the penalty of law?
I do.
Go ahead, take a seat.
Excuse me, I've got the fluids, I apologize. Mr. Law&Crime, can you please state your full name and please spell your last name?
Michael Anthony Alarcon. Last name is Alarcon.
Okay. And, Mr. Law&Crime, where do you work at?
Bernalillo County Fire Department.
Okay, and how long have you worked with the Bernalillo County Fire Department?
3 years.
Okay. And what do you do there?
I am a firefighter.
Okay. As part of your firefighter duties, are you trained in EMT or paramedic type of duties?
Not paramedic, but I am an EMT.
Okay. And what level of EMT are you?
And I am an intermediate.
Okay. Can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what those levels are?
Okay, so there's 3 different levels of basic, intermediate, and paramedic. Basic can perform CPR, do assessments on patients, and pretty much the only difference between a basic and an intermediate is that I could start IVs and push different types of drugs.
And what training do you have to have, or what do you have to complete in order to step up to the different levels?
For an intermediate, you have to go to school for 2 semesters. You have to do some stuff in the hospital to prove that you could perform your skills in the emergency setting, kind of. And you have to pass a state test, state skills test, and also a national registry test.
Okay. And when you say schooling, what type of classes or what type of courses do you have to complete?
They are particular to the EMT intermediate course, so it's an intermediate class for EMTs.
Okay. Now, and how long have you been an intermediate EMT?
About 4 years.
4 years? Okay. Now, I'm going to refer you back to May 25th, 2015, okay? And I want you to tell me around 7 o'clock in the evening, do you recall where you were at?
I was sitting in the passenger seat of a friend's vehicle, Barbara,
And where was that located?
in Rio Rancho.
Okay. Do you recall what it was called or what your...
I think it was in the parking lot of a library.
Okay. Let me show you what... I'm going to show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 416. It's a drone, and I'm going to have you play it, and I will be stopping it intermediately to kind of have you explain to the jury where you were located. Okay, Mr. Alarcon, can you, by looking at that State's Exhibit 460, where approximately, if you could stand up and point where approximately you guys were at, where you were at?
Approximately in this area right here.
Okay. Now, okay, go to State's Exhibit 27. Okay, I'm showing you now State's Exhibit 27. Again, standing up, approximately where were you located?
This area.
Okay. Let the record reflect he's pointing to the right-hand side, middle point of Exhibit 27. Mr. Alcone, on that date, at that time, were you with anybody?
Yes.
And who were you with?
Barbara?
Barbara, do you know her last name?
I do not know her last
Okay.
name.
Okay. Would it be Barbara Meyer?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Alcone, when did you meet Ms. Meyer there?
About 3-4 years prior. We work in the same area. I work for the fire department, but we're in the same area, which is the East Mountains.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to speak up a little bit, just.
Okay.
Okay. And on that particular day, what time or when did you meet up? Were you in separate vehicles, first of all?
Yes.
Okay. When did you meet up with Ms. Meyer?
When?
Yeah.
Around 7 o'clock, I'm
Okay.
thinking.
Now, at that time, around, kind of referred to about 8 o'clock, did something happen that caught your attention across the street?
Yes.
Okay.
We were sitting.
Okay.
Oh,
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you observed?
okay. We were sitting in her vehicle, and we were just talking, and she noticed someone getting pulled over in a vehicle behind us. So she stated, there's...
I think it's been testified to, Your Honor. Well, just indicate what you did.
Which what?
Just indicate at that point what you did.
What I did? I said, okay, someone's getting pulled over behind us. I didn't look or anything, and after that, we heard gunshots, 2 of them at first, and then I turned around to look and see what was going on, and there was a officer on the ground.
Okay,
And
Michael, I'm going to pull you back a little bit. I'm going to show you what's, when you say that you looked back, did you have an opportunity to see approximately what was going on back there as you turned around?
yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 395. See if I put this in right. I'm not sure. Hold on. Okay. Again, kind of showing you at that point. Is that a diagram of approximately where you were located as to where the officer's vehicle was located?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Michael, you indicated that you were in what vehicle were you in?
In Barbara's vehicle.
Okay. And what side of the vehicle were you in?
Passenger
or
side.
driver?
Passenger.
Okay. Let me show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 233. Is that the passenger side of Ms. Meyer's vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. Is that the same vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. And State's Exhibit 232. Oops, let's see. I'm trying to. What does that show?
That shows the passenger side of the vehicle.
Okay. Now, you were seated in that passenger side. You indicated, you testified that you heard, how many shots did you hear?
2 initially.
Initially?
Yes.
Okay. Were there any other shots that you heard?
There was a couple more after.
Okay. When did you turn around, and how did you explain to the jury how you turned around?
So I was sitting in the passenger seat and heard gunshots, and then I turned around to the left so I could see out the back of it. And that's when I saw the officer.
Okay. Now, let me show you what's been admitted. As, first of all, the first one, State's Exhibit 234. Looking from within Ms. Meyer's vehicle, does the picture fairly and accurately represent what you have seen on May 25th?
Yes.
Okay. And is that how you turned, and that's the back window that you looked at?
Yes, that's the view that I had.
Let me again show you State's Exhibit 235. Is that what you have seen?
Yes.
Okay. And now State's 237. Is that what you was?
Yes.
Now, these reshoots, was there any obstruction between, when you looked out the back window, I apologize, back window, was there any obstructions, any other vehicles between your view and where you saw the officer?
No.
Okay. Now, after hearing several gunshots, two initially, how many do you recall? Was there a pause?
There was a pause.
Okay. Do you recall how many other shots were after the pause?
1, 2 more.
Okay. What, you turned, looked, what did you see?
I saw an officer on his butt at the back of the vehicle, the Dodge Durango.
I'm going to show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 29. And Your Honor, I'd ask the witness if he could step down. Okay. Mr. Alarcon, if you could step down. And with my pen here, can you kind of tell me where approximately from Officer Benner's vehicle, where the other vehicle may have been?
Right in this area.
Okay. And where did you see the officer on his butt?
He was towards the back of the vehicle.
Okay.
In this area.
Okay. And what was he doing?
He was scooting back.
But he was on the ground.
Yes.
Okay. And he was moving.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, let me just show you this State's Exhibit 30. And again, if you could use the cap of my pen to kind of put in position where you think, where you remember the vehicle, the front vehicle being.
This area.
Okay. And approximately, again, using my pen, where the officer would have been.
He would have been back here.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Alarcon. You can take a seat, please. Mr. Alarcon, you indicated that the officer was attempting to move. He was on his behind, and he was scooting back. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, when you saw this, what did you do? After seeing it through the rearview mirror, what did you see?
I told Barbara to call 911. I then exited the vehicle and went running towards the officer.
Okay. If I could have 27 back. Okay, let me see if it'll come up. Okay. If you could kind of stand up and out of the way and kind of indicate, did you approach the officer? Did you come to the officer's aid?
Yes.
Okay, can you get up and kind of describe how you proceeded to the to the officer?
So if we were parked in this area right here, I then came almost directly around to where the officer was over here.
Okay, okay, thank you. During the time that you were approaching the officer from running down to look and render aid or do what you could, did you observe anything? Did you see anything?
I saw the driver's side door open,
Okay,
and I noticed the color and make of the vehicle.
okay. And what was the color and the make of the vehicle?
It was a silver Dodge Durango,
Okay. And you indicated that there was a door open. Which driver or passenger side?
driver's side.
And when we're talking about what vehicle, are we talking about the officer's vehicle or the Durango?
The Durango.
Okay. And as you're approaching, could you observe the officer?
Yes.
Okay. What was he doing?
He was, by the time I got there, he was just laying flat on the ground.
Okay. Now, did you observe anybody around the vehicle, the Durango, I'm sorry?
No, I did not.
Where was your focus, Mr. Alvarado?
It was on the officer that was down.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jury here what you did when you got to the officer?
Well, when I got to the officer, I was knelt down, tried to see if he was awake or anything by kind of shouting at him, "Are you okay? Are you fine?" I didn't hear any response. His eyes were still wide open, so I continued to kind of do the best assessment that I could of him, which he had a lot of blood in his chest area and in his legs. So at that point, that's kind of what I did initially when I got there.
Okay. Now, Officer Alcott, you indicated that his eyes were open. Did it appear that Officer Benner was alive?
Yes.
Okay. And now, as you're approaching Officer Benner, I got a little ahead of myself. Step back a bit. When you're approaching the officer and you're running down what you've described, where you ran down, did you observe what happened with the Durango?
It sped off down the street.
Okay. So was it already gone by the time you actually got to Officer Benner?
It was, I got halfway there and then it took off.
Okay. By halfway there, when you were drawing that, indicating on that Exhibit 27, you got to about halfway point and then the Durango took off?
Yes.
Okay. And can you describe, if you can, was it going fast, slow, taking off, slow, fast?
It was going fast.
Okay. Could you see anybody before, when you talk about the driver's side of the Durango, the door open, were you able to observe anybody standing there?
No, I could not.
Okay. Again, where was your focus?
On the officer.
All right. Now, you get to Officer Benner. He's alive still from what you've indicated.
Yes.
There's a lot of blood. What did you do?
I tried to see where the blood was coming from, and as far as I could tell, without having any tools on me to kind of expose him, I noticed a lot of blood on the right leg of him, so I tried to see what I could do to make a tourniquet.
Okay. Now, when you say you saw a lot of blood on his right leg, can you describe what you actually saw? I mean,
Well, I stuck my hands like on his leg and under his leg, and I noticed a lot of blood on my gloves. I did the same thing to the other side, and there wasn't much more blood. So.
okay. Now, you talk about gloves. Did you have gloves with you already?
No, I did not.
Okay. How did you come about getting gloves?
I noticed the officer down, a lot of blood on him. I went to his vehicle, and he kept some gloves on the side of his door, so I was able to get gloves for me and whoever else right there.
Okay. By gloves, are you talking surgical gloves or?
Like just regular I guess surgical gloves would be the plain way to put it, yeah.
That people put on?
Latex gloves.
Okay. Okay. Now, so you go back so you went to Officer Benner's vehicle initially?
I went to him first, and then I went to the vehicle, and then I came back.
Okay. And did you pass out the gloves to other people?
Yes, I gave a pair to Barbara, and I might have given some to someone else. I'm not sure.
Okay. Now, you noticed the blood by placing your hand on his leg, correct?
Yes.
Do you recall if it's right or left?
Right.
Okay. And were you able to determine where the blood was coming from?
I couldn't tell exactly where the blood was coming from. I didn't know if it was coming from his stomach and just rolling down his leg, or if it was actually the leg that was bleeding.
Okay. Now, you talk about a tourniquet. You were planning to do a tourniquet, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why would you do that?
To stop the blood flow to the leg, so that way it could stop bleeding so much.
Okay. Were you able to determine at some point that the blood was coming from the leg?
I never got an actual shot of the leg.
So you were just assuming?
I was assuming that if it was bleeding, I might as well fix it and leave it alone.
Okay. Now, how did you get the tourniquet?
Initially, we didn't really have much to work with, so when they were exposing his top half, his shirt was there, so we tried to tear apart his shirt and tie it in. I grabbed his baton out of his belt to try and stick it in, so that way I could turn it, so that way the tourniquet will get tight. But that was unsuccessful because the shirt just broke when we got it tight enough that it needed to be.
Okay, so you went ahead and the baton was not out. It was still in Officer Benner's belt.
Yes.
Okay. And can you describe how you pulled it out and how you got it going?
Well, it kind of pulled out pretty easy, and then I just like threw it down and it extended. So.
Okay. And I guess what you're saying is that you got a piece of his shirt or something?
Yes.
And began to try to use a tourniquet, correct?
Yes.
How did you use the baton to do that?
So you tie the shirt kind of loosely, and then if you're able to stick the baton under it, you could turn it, and it'll just tighten up as you turn.
And you said that that was unsuccessful?
Yes.
Okay. Let me show you State's Exhibit 435. This is found. Well, let me just let it go. What is that?
That is a piece of shirt that we used.
Okay. Was that the tourniquet, I guess, that you attempted to use?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let me show you State's Exhibit 436. See if I put this right. Okay. I'm going to be pointing to this area right here. Is this the officer's duty belt that he had on?
Yes.
Okay. And that's where you pulled the baton out of?
Yes.
Was there a place that the baton was?
It seemed like it had a holster type thing that it fit into.
Okay. So the baton wasn't in Officer Benner's hands, correct?
No.
Now, attempting to use the tourniquet at this point and it breaking, what you do next, Mr. Oliver?
Try and find anything else that I could try and use a tourniquet with, and then I also helped with exposing the officer's top half.
Okay. What did you do to expose the top half?
We took off his bulletproof vest and his shirt. And
Okay. Let me show you State's Exhibit 433. When we talk about bulletproof, is this what we're talking about right here?
yes.
Okay. And you were able to get it off?
Yes, we were.
Okay. Now, what condition, if you could tell, what condition was Officer Benner in at that point?
Officer Benner had some gunshot wounds to his chest and shoulder.
Okay. Now, as far as was there a pulse to Officer Benner or not?
No.
Okay. Now, let me kind of show you State's Exhibit 434. It's this photograph depict, Mr. Alarcon, the vest, correct?
Yes.
And the duty belt that was on Officer Benner?
Yes.
Okay. Now, after looking at Officer Benner, what attempts did you're talking about after you take the thing out, what life-saving?
Well, you try and put pressure to the wound so that way if you can stop the bleeding. And that's pretty much what we did at that point. It wasn't very long from that point till we exposed him that the Rio Rancho Fire Rescue showed up.
At some point, did anybody help provide you any other medical supplies? Or
Yes,
okay,
another officer showed up.
okay, and what did he give you?
It looked like kind of like a jump bag. That's what a lot of people put medical supplies in, such as tourniquets, gauze, things like that.
Let me show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 439. Is this what we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. And State's Exhibit 440, kind of depicting, showing you this there. Is that the little jump bag that they provided?
Yes, it is.
So you're rendering aid to Officer Benner at that point. What you do next?
After that, with that jump bag that they got, they had a tourniquet in it, and I was familiar with using that tourniquet, so I put that tourniquet on.
Okay, and when you say put that tourniquet on, where?
On his right leg.
Okay. In approximately what location did you?
As high up towards the hip that I could.
Okay. And you were able to secure that tourniquet?
Yes.
Okay. When you first approached Officer Benner, was there any communication between you and Officer Benner?
No, he could not speak.
Okay. But you indicated his eyes were open.
Yes.
Now, going back a little bit, hearing the gunshots, was your passenger window open or closed?
It was open.
Okay. Now, when you approached Officer Benner, was there any female there asking anything?
No.
Okay. Did you ever see anybody, any female, in that vicinity?
I noticed a couple and pretty much after everything was done.
Okay. Did you pay attention to who they were?
I did not.
Okay. And pass the witness around. Okay. Yeah.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Now, I assume that when you were sitting in this, is that an Xterra or what, the yellow car?
Yes.
You guys were just chitty-chatting, right?
Yeah.
And something is said to you, but you're really not paying attention, and you hear gunshots, right?
Yes.
Okay. And your training is pretty extensive, right?
Yes.
As far as EMT goes, and you're trained to run toward the event rather than away with Ray from it, and you're, I'm going to assume for a moment that your training took over and you kind of fell into this mode that you're trained to do to save lives, right?
Yes, we are trained to help, so that's what pretty
right.
much what took over.
And that's exactly what happened in this spot, right, in this situation?
Yes.
Okay. But you were able to make some observations regarding the scene. I mean, this is regarding what was going on. You've already testified to some of those observations, correct?
Yes.
And previously, you've been able to make, you've made an observation about the Durango, right? You remember being asked questions about the description of the vehicle?
Yes.
And you've described it as a silver vehicle, SUV or Durango, right?
Yes.
And one of the things, more specific details you gave about this Durango was it had dark tint on the windows, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You testified previously and today that you saw the driver's side door open, right?
Yes.
Okay. But that you never saw anybody get out, right?
No.
Okay. And part of the reason for this is you were focused on what you knew to be a mortally wounded officer, right?
Yes.
And you were asked by State's Counsel if you ever saw any females at the scene, and you did, right?
After the event, yes.
But nothing, but you don't have anything really to offer other than you saw people at the scene, right?
Yes.
And you weren't privy to any conversations those individuals might have been having with other people?
No.
And neither did you have any conversation with them, right?
No.
You don't know whether they were involved or not, right?
No.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you to take a look at what's already been identified as States 348. Oh, upside down. Okay. And you've been asked to identify this photograph and some of the things in the photograph, right?
Yes.
All right. While you were attempting to render aid for Officer Benner, did you notice these orange, and I'm using the tip of my pen as a pointer, did you notice these orange items on the ground?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did you ever, has anybody ever asked you what those orange items were, or have you been asked to identify even later if you knew what they were?
No.
Okay. But you'll agree with me from, will you not, from, does this photograph resemble the scene as you recall while you were rendering aid on Officer Benner?
Yes.
Do you have any reason to believe that something was added after the fact?
No.
Okay. And while you didn't notice these orange items on the ground, will you agree with me that they are in close proximity to not only blood that is on the ground, but also Officer Benner's vest and his pants and the tourniquet, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Pass it to Sean.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
May he be released from this appeal?
State has no objection.
No objection.
Mr. You can remain in the courtroom, you can leave wherever you want.
Okay.
Let's take like a 5-minute, 10-minute break, and then we'll come back. It's going to be 11 o'clock, so let's take a quick break and we'll come back.
All right.